Well, hello there. Welcome to Love and Life Elevated. My name is Dr. James.
Hi, I'm Dr. Deborah.
We are so excited.
Yeah, we do have a cat meowing right on the other side of a door, so hopefully that doesn't come through. But other than that, we've got a very sexy topic today.
Whoa, did you say sexy topic?
I know, I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm kind of nervous I'm being really honest right
yeah,
now.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to talk about all kinds of cool things with, just cool things with functional medicine and personal development. But when it comes to sex, this
is both. Honestly.
Okay, there you go.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we love sex, but it's just when we love to talk about it. It's always interesting.
So it's not that we're specifically, sorry, I spit, talking about sex. I guess it really is getting me going, and I'm even blushing. But we are talking about libido and desire and how that evolves when you're in long-term relationships, because many of us have felt that like initial attraction, lust, desire, but then you've been with someone, 5, 10, 20, 30 plus years, and like, how do you keep the spark? And this topic just was really up for me because I was listening to another podcast and I came home and I remembered way back when I read that book, I think it's called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. And she talked about or introduced this concept of chore play versus foreplay. So I can imagine you can make sense of that. So tell me, when I brought that up to you, what did you start doing?
I started doing chores. I immediately went and cleaned the toilets. I vacuumed. I changed. I became a housework ninja.
And that's so great. And then, the funny thing is I wanted to do a deeper dive on that because I thought, yeah, it definitely is sexy, because I know that we have had a traditional heterosexual domestic partnership role, in the sense of traditionally I have taken care of a lot of that with raising the children or watching the children. And it's always driven me crazy when one set of a parental unit say, oh, I get to babysit the kids. It's like, no, you're the mom or the dad or whatever.
Right.
This is just what you do. It's not babysitting. So anyway, when we talk about chore play, whether you are a man or woman staying home, it doesn't really matter. But does that kind of really, really do something for your partner is the real question.
Turns out
that there's a lot more to it. And then bottom line is that when they looked at the research, and this is kind of research that's about 10 to 15 years old, it actually kind of decreased. It slightly lowered sex frequency. So you would think that all of a sudden you're stepping up. I see you loading and unloading the dishwasher properly.
Properly, keyword. That doesn't go there.
But anyway, in this traditional role play that we are experiencing, and that in that traditional role, that if you're doing traditional female, if you're not watching this, by the way, and just listening to it, I am using quote fingers, traditional female chores, it actually did not increase the frequency. So I don't know if chore play is a real thing. When you see me doing chores, what does it do for you? Well, I know it doesn't take much.
It doesn't do anything. It's honey, I think the thing that we need to, tell everyone about is we've been together over 30 years. And an experience of the evolution of intimacy and sex and trust and vulnerability, there are seasons for all these things. And I think the beautiful thing that you and I can have testimony to is that we are always looking for ways to deepen intimacy, but not seeing sex as the ultimate act of intimacy.
Right.
And I think one of the things that, whether I'm out mowing the lawn, and I'm proud of myself for the lawn I just mowed, there's a lot about things that I think we are looking at as research that suggests is that one of the major things, whether or not you gain sort of self-development through doing dishes or mowing the lawn, that is actually much more accompanied by whether that's arousal or vulnerability or trust in yourself or feeling a sense of self-confidence. It's literally whether or not you are evolving and growing as a human being, whether or not you're performing for your mate, chores and things, literally, to your point, doesn't seem to really hold true.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of intentionality behind that, right? If I think that you are only cleaning toilets because you're hoping that arouses something in me, it's going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
But I will say that my experience, this is funny, right? Like when you clean all the toilets and I notice like you feel great about that.
Yeah.
And you just feel great about that for you. And guess what? When I see that, that is what gets me excited about you. Like, and that kind of, I was going to talk about that later on and we'll get to that. But I think part of that is about when you see your partner, like, cleaning toilets, it does not equate to growth. So that's like the wrong message that I'm sending. But you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, it's a task accomplished. It's like checking something off the list. And that just feels good no matter what it is.
Absolutely.
Right?
And, as you look at more and more the science behind intimacy and sexual arousal, there's a lot of different pieces. This is beautifully subjective. Mm-hmm. This is very, very personal. Mm-hmm. Of course it is. But some of the things that we see out there in relationship to whether or not you're evolving as a person and doing the things that make you feel more confident, which is one of the more attractive qualities, is feeling confident. And alongside of that, very interesting is how it is that we feel under the influence of watching our partner become more confident in the things that they love to do. You and I have watched many relationships over our time together, because when you're married 30 years, you've had different friends and beautiful couples, and then families, all of a sudden, they're no longer families anymore, and they've divorced. And we've seen a lot of that being connected to that one partner continuing to do the deeper work and growing and evolving, and the other partner not. And that seems to be very symptomatic of one of the bigger drivers of why relationships fall apart. But before that, intimacy is starting to dissolve, because that level of respect and accountability to oneself is already starting to move away. And then eventually the divorce tends to happen thereafter.
Yeah, you're right. That is something that we are definitely going to get to in terms of the research. And what you're talking about is when, what we've seen kind of collapse in other couples where then the relationship has dissolved is when one of the individuals in the couple is on a personal growth journey, and they start growing, changing, grooving on something new, and that is so fun to witness in a partner. Yeah. But sometimes the partner's just not on the same path, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of keeping a long-term partnership alive, I think mutual growth needs to happen, right? And I came to a study about that. It was really great. It's called, this isn't what the study is called, but it was just a phrase that came up, and that's growth is the new aphrodisiac. What do you think about that?
I love that. And I think that's exactly what we were speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be necessarily spiritual growth or any sort of, any venue that's specific to a type of growth. I think it's all in this idea that becoming interesting is more about the idea that you are an interesting person to be around. And over years and decades together, that's one of the biggest things we see in relationship to the part of the brain that's associated with attraction and intimacy and desire. It has a lot to do with our brain chemistry and being interested and curious about your person because they're continually being interesting to be around. That is a really big part of this.
Yeah.
And interesting, the limbic system where our emotions lie, and then you got the hippocampus and where intimacy and trust. You've got a really interesting opportunity there to see what are you doing every single day to become interesting. And that's not just what we're doing for our partner. Much, much more important. Are you interested in yourself
Yes.
for the things that you're doing to grow and evolving and becoming more and more aligned with? And one of the things I was reading about this is just when you have a very specific value system, whether it's honesty, trust, kindness, those kinds of things, when you're in alignment with those, that also really arouses a part of our brain that says, I'm confident, I feel good about myself. And that is a quantum experience. There's an energy that we're carrying ourselves that way, that our partner and our families really, really feel trusting and connected and intimate with that person when that person's feeling that way within themselves.
And I think it goes along with, I'm a hobby person. I think, especially the last, say, 20 of the 30 years we've been together, you've seen me kind of dabble in so many things, whether it was a sport hobby or a crafting kind of hobby. And what you were just saying is like, relationships flourish with closeness and togetherness, but it's really important for you to also have something that is uniquely yours. Time apart is really important. There was a time when you, James, was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
And it was really hard on you. Mm-hmm. And I know that's something that you really did to support the family, and I'm always grateful for that. At the same time, for me being home, I was like, now I don't have to put so much effort into creating this amazing dinner or whatever. Like that space, even though part of that was hard on you. And so I would take you being here over you having that type of stress, hands down. But I think sometimes that space helped grow our relationship a little more because it was during a time when there was more stress, yes. I think, in the relationship. And now, I love being together all the time. I mean, we both mostly work from home. You still travel a little. I still travel a little. But I love that we have kind of our unique growth paths. I'm about to embark on something new and cool and exciting that you're so supportive of. And so are you. And that's, I just get almost chills thinking about how cheering each other on is such an important part of our relationship and brings us so much closer.
Yeah, I think the take home with that one is really good. So whether or not you're in a relationship right now, whether or not you're in a long-term relationship, you're going, we need to work on this intimacy and making sure that we stay interesting to one another. I think these are the questions we have to really come to every single day, and the things that I think we've also really done really well with. This is based on a lot of the research that we do, but these are things we were doing all along. But then I think it reinforces the intention, right? We've talked a lot about the power of rituals and shared rituals and its relationship to helping with our mental and emotional well-being and a deep connection. When we do rituals together with our person, that augments all kinds of opportunities for intimacy and vulnerability and connection. So you and I have some absolute rituals that we do every single day. They are non-negotiables. In fact, these kinds of things that we have decided are important to us, we go into them with a level of zeal and a level of gratitude that we work out a lot of the things that we need to work out. So when we get back home, we've moved through some of the stuff that's, again, about keeping things fresh, but also making sure there's things that we need to talk about that are hard. We've moved through those things as well. And those kinds of things, connecting to ritual, shared ritual, is such a big part of healthy, successful, long-term relationships. And that's not necessarily just with, a partner who's your intimate partner, your husband, your wife, your partner, your lover. It's with anyone that we actually deem we want to have in that close circle. Values and rituals that we can share together help us to really instill two things. Number, sense your worthiness of you being wanting to be around, and along with that, the sense of belonging, which is very different than fitting into relationships or different communities and things.
Yeah, and I want to just shift a little bit and say, get more specific to the physiology of it, of libido specifically. And so maybe the attraction is totally there, 100%, but that libido spark just isn't taking the cue, right? So what are some things in general? I know 3 right off the bat, and that is manage your cortisol, lower cortisol, because cortisol kills libido.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate.
Right. So that is such an important one, because how many times have we seen ourselves being stressed? And one of the things we put on, well, we haven't made love in all this time, and that adds a whole other piece to stress to it. Really think about what you can be doing in part of your own foreplay in your own relationship to managing your stress. Getting out for that walk, doing your breathing practice, doing your meditation, doing it for you. And whether or not that relates to bringing more libido up in that'll be a wonderful side effect. But ultimately, that relationship we have with yourself, following through those kinds of practices, managing your stress.
Well, I have a very vulnerable question to take that further. So I believe, or my assumption is that men, and I'm speaking from a heterosexual woman perspective, but men tend to want or use sex to get rid of their stress or to decrease the stress. So I don't know how to compare that in terms of, like, I know as a woman and a woman of my age that stress does kill my libido, and I don't be like, oh, I need to have sex to like de-stress, right? Because it's just not there. But you read about men who maybe have some addiction around sex and how it's used to alleviate stress. What do you think?
I think that's a really good question. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of take the path that I believe I need to speak honestly to. It isn't that way. And I think that we have to, as men, find out, is that a more of a power, misogynistic, and toxic masculine use of intimacy or power? Or do we need to work on that, saying it's a stress reliever? Like, what kind of transaction is that? Because it becomes very transactional. Like, oh, I got a lot of stress, I need to have an orgasm. Like, that's how a lot of men will look at it.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and listen, I'm far from the guy that has all those things together. But one thing I really understand about my intimacy and my need and my value is that if I see it as a way of relieving stress in a transaction, I know I am absolutely disconnecting from you as my person.
That's a good way to put it. Like, the connection is lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it becomes transactional. How quickly can I have my orgasm? I'm out, and then I go to sleep. That is such a thing for a lot of men. Or when men feel like they're just kind of ramped up tight, and that's what they see as their ultimate release. That's not your ultimate release, number one, guys. Your ultimate release is, what's driving this stress? How do I manage this more effectively? What do I do to actually help myself be more vulnerable and intimate, and asking for connection and sharing what's really hard on me or what's working difficultly in my life with my person? You're going to feel a whole lot more relieved when you have that conversation and that connection than you are just having transactional sex.
Yeah, wow. Really excellent response. I would add to the benefits, the beneficial actions that we can take to boost desire and libido would be getting good sleep, which we know really is disrupted in andropause, menopause, and then exercise, because both boost testosterone and dopamine. And it's just sticking with that, not to excess, because then you're going to, guess what, increase your cortisol.
Yeah.
Excess in the exercise part.
Yeah.
But a sound night's sleep is so key. And that actually ties back into rituals and habits that we've talked about a lot of times, getting back into your circadian rhythm, not just so many things.
So many things.
With the sleep. With that, we're not going to get into that now, but how important that is in relationship to libido.
Yes. And along with that, some people will talk about, well, should you schedule sex? Is that going to help the follow through? Well, research says scheduling it, and in particular, morning sex seems to actually have a greater opportunity that will actually follow through versus as the day goes on and we start feeling more tired, more stressed, whatever the case may be, it tends not to happen as readily. So that's a very interesting thing too. And I would also bring to this is really, really interesting around testosterone and exercise. Men and women over the age of 50 who wanting to keep libido going and feel that sense of strength and attraction and sexiness, work your lower body. It's really, really important. And I feel like resistance training and doing squats and doing lunges and plyo jumps, research shows that testosterone really, really loves those kinds of exercises. And it really is empowering for the entire being, if you will, to work on the lower body physicality. So that's another thing.
Well, and in addition to that, for men and women especially, is pelvic floor. Engaging the pelvic floor when you're doing those floor exercises, any exercise really, it's going to just strengthen that whole lower body, the root chakra, the pelvic area. That is really, really key. And if that is an area of weakness for you, that I really encourage you to work with a pelvic floor specialist, because you can do physical therapy around that to really strengthen that. And then the side benefit of that is that you may awaken that lower sleeping libido in the process.
So we could go on for a long time on this, because I'm going to bring in for both parties, males in particular, erectile dysfunction, its relationship to sugar and
blood
alcohol.
pressure.
And blood pressure, my goodness. So men, if you are really in this place north of 50 and going, wow, I'm not performing the way I like to, and all my work is not really working as well as I used to have it, really look at your alcohol consumption, look at your sugar consumption, look at your blood pressure, look at the way you're managing your weight. Because all of this plays a huge role, not only in desire and libido, but also in performance. And I think for men who find themselves really moving into more of that that way in which they go, oh, there's so much anxiety around whether or not I can perform, and we're using other means to help us, that's totally fine. But underneath this, there may be opportunities for deepening our self-care and really, really ritualizing the things that we know make us feel more strong, make us feel more confident. And really seeing ourselves follow through with those intentions is a giant part of helping with us feeling good about ourselves.
And go back really quick to when you were talking about scheduling sex. I think that as long as it doesn't feel like an obligation, but feels more like a celebration.
Oh, good.
Then like turning that obligatory to more celebratory. I think I'm all for scheduling.
Yeah. And I know, and some people will say, wow, that seems so mechanistic. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's just, doesn't that kill? No, it doesn't. There's an anticipation. And research shows that when our prefrontal cortex can make a decision like, hey, we're having sex at 3 p.m, and there's this anticipation that actually really our brain and our physiology enjoys as we look forward to it. It makes us feel like teens again, or that early 20 when you and I were first dating. Like, I couldn't wait to go over and visit you. I really couldn't. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go visit Deb. And that is a really good thing. There's so much about, as we age, the things that actually initially brought us together and turned us on, they're still there. But we have to give ourselves permission to curate and bring those things to life. That's a beautiful way in which we express our love for one another, our respect for one another, and really that deep enjoyment we have for being alive in this relationship.
So I want to talk, before we end today, just about something you're all thinking about, frequency. Like, how often do we want to be doing this? And
is there any stats on how many what guys think versus?
Yeah, they're like sitting here with their fingers crossed right now. But this is again a 10-year-old study, but it was published in Social Psychology and Personality Science, and this fascinated me. It said happiness plateaus after once per week sex. So what that means is, like, if you're having sex 5, 6, 7 times a week, you're not getting happier. You're good with once a week. You're as happy.
If sex is what you equate with part of your happiness.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And then another Kinsey Institute study in 2017 found that 10 plus years of long-term couples average once per week to once every 2 weeks. That would be the average.
Okay.
And that what matters more than frequency is mutual satisfaction and just a shared desire and closeness.
That is really important, because I think a lot of people would say, well, our relationship, I'm not feeling as close as we'd like to. And people say, well, how many times are you having sex? Well, once a week. Going, well, I think we need to have more sex. That'll help us. Maybe. But according to this data, that's not going to increase going, wow, everything's so much better now because we're having a lot more sex. Yes or no? Maybe. But it's not something we should equate and say, once we have more sex, things will get better. I think what you led today with, sweetheart, is so important. We got to keep growing. That's everything.
Key. It's key.
Every good study that's been done on intimacy and healthy relationships and staying together long and strong and having good sex, make sure you continue to grow. Make sure you're evolving. Make sure you're becoming. Make sure you're excited about yourself, because your partner is going to more likely be excited about their self. And this becomes a catalyst for both you guys to really grow together and grow as individuals. That's the ultimate.
Yeah, attraction grows when we're watching our partner grow. And I would say embracing novelty. So like planning a really exciting adventure of travel together, learning to dance, taking some classes together. We've done pottery together. We do drumming. And
we've done ballroom dancing together.
Really well. Not. But embracing play. Play is so important to bring in. That's outside of the bedroom play. Just to create that sense of joy that doesn't only rely on that, because honestly, it just won't last.
No, and there's a term that Deb and I use a lot in our work with patients as well in just our own relationship, chronic adultitis. It's the inflammation of becoming chronically adult. You have forgotten the joy, forgotten the play, forgotten the lightness. That is really our responsibility, not your partner's responsibility. It's your responsibility to say, I'm all in, I'm here for this, I want this, and give yourself permission to be vulnerable, to be open, to be honest, and do this great work. And this isn't work like, oh my gosh, it's so heavy and it's so hard. It may be that initially, but I think once you start finding yourself, giving yourself to it, it becomes lighter, your experience becomes brighter, your goodness becomes this essence again. And then all of a sudden you're feeling this youthful way in which you at one time loved to be together. You get a chance to see that as a beautiful celebration of being together again.
Absolutely. So what I want to leave you with today is to remind you that what you appreciates. So when you appreciate your partner, it really helps bring you closer together. And for whatever reason, it took us a little while to learn that in our relationship. And now, we appreciate each other all the time. And then it grows on itself. And it's really been effortless, I would say. It's not forced. And surprise yourself and surprise your partner. Like if this isn't something that you're used to doing, find something, anything that you can really authentically appreciate in the other person. And I believe that as a result, that will actually help stimulate libido as well.
Yeah, and at the risk of looking potentially, easy to judge what I'm going to say right now, honey, I didn't even know we were going to have this topic today, but after you said, I think this would be a great topic. I look back at how many times did we hug today? We've hugged like 8 times today. Quick little hugs, kisses on the side of our heads, good smiles. And I'm downstairs working in this office, Deb's upstairs in hers. And I just love the fact that that is just how we are together. We get all those hugs together. We can build that oxytocin together. And it's not forced. It's natural. It's playful. That is there for all of us, but it begins within. And my goodness, I hold that for you. And if you're looking for that kind of relationship, begin within. Look at what it is you're doing in your world. How's your self-care? What are you ritualizing to bring that vulnerability and that sense of belonging to yourself? And then how is that starting to give how should we say, a quantum energetic of attraction around you? It's a beautiful time to build community intimately and with others, because the world needs this right now. We need that much level of intimacy and vulnerability and connection.
Yes, 100%. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. Thank you for being with us today and letting us be silly, letting us be vulnerable, and a little bit out there. We appreciate you.
We do. Much love, all blessings. We'll see you soon. Have an awesome afternoon. Bye for now.
Take care.